Hello and welcome back to my channel. Bonjour et bienvenue sur ma chaîne. My name is Muriel and in this video I will be doing a review for season 1 of Amazon Prime's TV adaptation of the Wheel of Time series written by Robert Jordan. I'm not going to be too careful about spoilers, so you've been warned, and I'm not going to be that positive in places. I didn't hate it, but I didn't love it either. First, I'm going to go over my general feelings about the visual aesthetics of the show and the music. The music first, perhaps, because I don't really have that much to say about it. As I'd stated in my first impressions video, I think the show has a unique musical signature. It has an interesting score, perhaps just not the kind of thing I prefer. A lot of vocals, guitar notes, even perhaps electrical guitar notes, if I identify those correctly. Yes, it stands out from other fantasy IPs, but wasn't a super big fan of it. In places it worked better than in others. When it comes to the intro montage, I feel basically the same about it. I think the opening melody has grown on me just a teensy bit, but it's not my favorite thing either, and visually it's still very pretty mostly. I'm still not a big fan of actually seeing those big CGI looms in the opening, but the weaving of the magic as thread, I thought that's quite beautiful and symbolically relevant to some thematic storytelling aspects of the Wheel of Time, sure, so it's good enough. As to the visuals for the rest of the show, well, it was a mixed bag. I mean, some things looked really good. Some of the sets looked good, though, and this is going to be a recurring complaint. A lot of it felt too small to me, too contained in on itself. I enjoyed the costuming as well, but at times I felt they were way too clean for way too long, and I felt they were reused too much for a lot of characters. You see Egwene wearing the same thing everywhere pretty much, and I'm like, shouldn't she have lost those clothes at some point? So that felt a bit jarring, but I appreciated the different kinds of clothing to reflect different kinds of cultures, though those different cultures and factions weren't that strongly established either, which goes back to this problem of I thought it was too small, it was too self-contained and not explored as it should have been, even for a first season. When it comes to the CGI, more specifically there as well, it was just a mixed bag. I'm not a fan of those Trollocs. There's nothing for it. I prefer orcs. Sorry, not sorry, especially in that last episode. That last episode specifically felt like a hot mess to me with some good bits. I'll get back to that towards the end of the video. Yeah, not a fan of Trollocs. The fades look kind of cool, but then you don't see that much of them anyway. Tar Valon looked impressive. Faldera looked impressive, but there's also this recurring problem of not having a good sense of geography, of place, of distances. I just didn't really feel that immersed in the show through the visual aspects of it. Some scenes, however, did work for me, if only from an emotional point of view. The whole thing with the warders and the funeral ceremony for the Aes Sedai, I thought that was quite beautiful and emotionally impactful. I actually felt that. I didn't feel much of anything in this show, but that actually moved me, so that was a nice little bit of cinematography right there. I liked the blight, these kind of rotted trees that looked like evil, creepy starfish or hands. I thought that was really good. The Eye of the World itself as this old ruin, I thought that set looked brilliant as well, and the stuff that happens in it was probably my favorite bit of the very last episode of season 1. The battle scenes, well, one of them in the earlier part of the season looked alright. That last one in the season finale, well, it relied heavily on CGI and those Trollocs, and I was like, again, sorry, not sorry, but it felt like knockoff Helm's Deep just a wee bit, and I was like, I'm not impressed here. And the channeling, well, the channeling, I've gotten used to it, so it feels and looks a bit less wonky to me now. It kind of depends on the shot, honestly. I think it'll bother me less and less as the show goes on, maybe. I do like the black color of the magic for men and the white color of the magic for women. It goes back to world-building elements of the series I am aware of, so that was neat. But when it comes to the characters, the character work, if you will, through the acting itself I thought was mostly fine. The character that stands out to me and who remains my favorite at the end of season 1 is Moraine, very, very clearly, and I like her relationship to Lan, though Lan kind of gets shafted in that last episode. You don't really see much of him at all. I also liked Nynaeve on her own, however, I didn't buy at all the romance between her and Lan. I was like, it's hinted at and then it's there. They have sex. and they love each other so much, and I was like, okay, am I supposed to actually care about this? So that didn't work for me at all. The romance between Rand and Egwene, yeah, fine, whatever. They're teenage sweethearts. Moving on. Perrin is a non-entity, kind of. His friendship with Egwene was nice for a hot minute, and then he's kind of just there hanging out. I was hoping for some kind of wolf magic to come in with all those hints, and it probably will come in later, but it's like, who cares, in a way? I like that one seer in Faldara. For some reason, that very minor character really worked for me. I like Loyal, this Ogier, that's what they're called, was just a nice, non-human character, but question mark as to the continuation of that, I guess. And some of the Aes Sedai characters with the tower politics, I mean, you get a bit of that, or you get too much of that, depending on your opinion, I guess. That was somewhat engaging, but basically Moraine and Lan. Though I appreciated the dynamic between Moraine and Rand in that finale. Otherwise, quite frankly, I'm not really attached to any of the characters besides Moraine. I like her, but then again, she's acted by Rosamund Pike, so it kind of makes sense, I suppose. It's a good performance, it's a convincing performance. And I do like Nynaeve when she's not relating to Lan, basically. So we'll see. Some of the relationship drama beats felt completely off to me, felt forced, unnecessary, or very tropey. Some of it felt more realistic. Like I said, I really liked that Aes Sedai funeral ceremony and the reaction of that warder who'd lost his Aes Sedai and like his soul was shattered by it. And that felt very convincing and very moving. So just a mixed bag, once again. A very, very mixed bag. And so far, it's just not what's going to keep me watching the show, basically. Oh yeah, and there's this big bad hinted at throughout the show through those nightmares, and I understand that nightmares and dreams actually happen in like a parallel dimension of reality. The face reveal, the way they did that was actually kind of cool. Before that, I thought he looked a bit wonky with the fiery eyes, but then that gets pulled away, and that was a neat bit of CGI. And the actor, I thought, pulled it off, the role. I liked him as a big bad, I just wanted more of that. Like I said, that scene in the Eye of the World with Moraine, that dude, and Rand was my favorite bit of the finale. But like, did we even get a name for this guy? I don't even know what his name is. He's like, what, a representative of the big evil power? So I'm a bit confused about that, but I like that small performance and hope to see more of it, I guess. So I'm gonna mix in my general impressions about the plot, the storytelling, and the world building. It's a mixed bag, once again. It felt very wonky, janky, jarring in places. In others, it was somewhat engaging, interesting. There's this thing called the Ways. I thought that needed way more context given to it, because what is this place exactly? Is it a parallel dimension? It's actually a place that got cursed, like what? But you can teletransport to it, and then there's this force that can invade your mind if you channel within the Ways. Okay, fine. A lot of these cold opens just introduce a bit of information. At times, I knew what they were talking about because, again, I've read about the Wheel of Time on my own time on the internet. But for a complete noob, I would imagine it'd be quite confusing. All that cold open for the season finale where you see 3,000 years into the past where humans were extremely technologically advanced, but they also had magic. Yes, okay, cool on the surface, but why, how is it linked to everything else? I kind of know, but again, for a complete noob, I would imagine this would be pretty confusing and just not fitting neatly into place with everything else you've been presented so far. I just had this overwhelming impression of the world being too small or not connected enough between its component parts. The sense of place of distance felt very nebulous at times. The cities themselves, you see bits of them. You have these big, beautiful panoramic shots, and then you just see the characters in these little bits of it, and it feels very small and too contained on itself. And that's not what I expect from epic fantasy, even from a first season, from an opening act of the storytelling. And so I didn't get the impression of being presented with a whole world, one unified world. Not necessarily unified culturally or politically, but just it is one world in which I can lose myself. That's not the impression that I got at the end of it, really. And of course, you know, there were these little funny to me inconsistencies I spotted at times. It's like you have Rand and Moraine walking through this very creepy looking blight. I will give points for the blight. It was cool looking and creepy and the shapes and shit. But they're walking through it and she's like, don't touch anything. And I'm like, y'all are brushing against foliage just by walking through it, so you're kind of touching it all of the time, okay? And this tiny little detail though, she usually actually has this braid that keeps her hair out of her face. And then she's walking through the blight with like hair basically like this, and I'm like, can you take 5 seconds out of your time to tie your hair back? Wouldn't that be more practical for you? You're a very powerful magic user. And no? Okay, whatever. The dream sequences at times were also a bit funny looking, though again that kind of got resolved with the face reveal for the big bad, or like the main emissary of the big bad. But then you have these fade creatures, which I thought looked kind of cool and scary, but then you see very little of them. Again, it's just this feeling of you have a canvas and you got these blotches of colors being dropped on it, but at the end, when you kind of look back, it doesn't really form a neat, beautiful picture altogether, which is disappointing. So maybe, I don't know, I think perhaps, honestly, I'm not a big fan of series that just overstay their welcome either. I do like the fact that we've moved on over the past decade, 15 years, towards a format of shorter series with longer episodes running up to just under an hour. However, 8 episodes for the opening season of one of the big chunky works of fantasy, epic fantasy, I feel that might be a bit short. Can Amazon have given the show like 10 episodes at least? I think they rushed through this. They rushed, condensed things which shouldn't have been as condensed, lost time or wasted time on silly tropes or character drama, or I don't know what should have been changed, but I'm just very underwhelmed by the storytelling, by the world building, or at least that bit of the world building you presented within this first season, by the character development. I guess that was fine. Ultimately, I just don't quite care enough yet, so yeah, I don't know. And with regards to the season finale specifically, again, just I was underwhelmed and I thought it was a bit of a mess, at the very least a mixed bag. I really liked the part with Moraine, Rand, and Mr. Big Bad Emissary is what I'm going to call him, at the Eye of the World. I mean, going through the Blight and then ending up at the Eye of the World in that ruin, linking it back to the very distant past and the events that led to the world being the way it is in the present. That was engaging enough, though I was left a bit puzzled by the outcome for Moraine. Was she stilled? I don't feel like that's right. Maybe her powers were just kind of like anesthetized or something through shielding, something I've read in some comments on other videos, so perhaps something to that effect. I feel since this first season felt rushed overall to me, the build-up towards that climax, if you want to call that, was just not good enough. Building up to this, again, knockoff Helm's Deep scene with the Trollocs, and this first conflict with the big bad through his incarnation, emissary, whatever. It felt like it should have been building, and then a bit plateauing, and then poof, climax. But it was just like, wing, climax. And okay, there were cliffhangery bits at the end there that were tantalizing enough for me to want to continue. You know, those warships at the end, presenting another faction culture arriving to a western shore. Though, why send a tsunami to a beach where no one's actually residing over this one little girl seems a bit of an overreaction. I don't know, but I was confused by that. I was like, are they trying to create floods inland? Or but they're cliffs? Whatever, it doesn't matter. But okay, that seemed cool enough, I suppose, on its own. The channeling at the end there with Egwene and Nynaeve and those other women from Faldara. I like the fact that the magic has consequences. It's not just, I can do whatever I want with this channeling of the one power. It actually taxes your body, and if you're not trained, it actually possesses you. You convulse with this power you're not able to control, and you have these women dying from basically internal combustion. And Nynaeve dies, conveniently gets resurrected, and I was like, if that had been George R. R. Martin, she would have stayed dead. Sorry, but come on, really, did you have to do it that way? That was just a bit on the nose. Like, of course they weren't actually, well, I was not sure for a hot second there, but then I was like, yeah, of course they're going to resuscitate her, duh. So that could have been handled better, but fine, whatever. And you have this horn, apparently, that's being carted off by the merchant dude from the very beginning, and Perrin being kind of like a clothing store mannequin, just cool. Then you have Matt going up to Tar Valon with like a dark look on his face, and Lan just arriving at the Eye of the World. What did I miss? I mean, I like the relationship between him and Moraine, but otherwise, it's like, where were you, bro? We just kind of bumped you off the screen for a long while there, but okay, so yeah, just a very mixed bag. Kind of like with Foundation, ultimately, I was just underwhelmed by this first season, as I was with Foundation. Because of this, I'm feeling kind of like this for the Tolkienverse adaptation they're working on at Amazon. I'm like, you're gonna fuck that up. I mean, they didn't fuck up the Wheel of Time too much. I mean, I know that some book fans are very angry about a lot of things that happen in season 1, but no, they didn't fuck up, but could do better. And hopefully they will, going forward. I don't know. I will continue with the show, though I'm not that enthusiastic about it either, honestly. It's definitely not the kind of first season of TV that would make me want to pick up the books. And I've already decided not to read the books, regardless. But when I finished, again, sorry to bring that up, but when I finished season 1 of Game of Thrones, I was like, I need to read these books ASAP. So that brings me to the conclusion of this review for season 1 of Amazon Prime's The Wheel of Time. Do let me know what you thought of this first season, whether or not you are a book series fan as well. But in the meantime, I hope you'll have a lovely day, evening, or whichever time of day you prefer. Do take care of yourselves, and I shall see you all reasonably soon in another video. Bye!